I'm here with Sarah Wilkin from Fly Green Alliance. Fly Green Alliance is an organisation that promotes sustainable travel and transport with a particular focus on SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. Sarah, when you set up Fly Green Alliance 5 years ago, what was its mission?
Its original mission was to increase awareness and build production and use of sustainable aviation fuel. We've actually gone on to evolve to work across travel and transport and to begin to decarbonise travel and transport, and SAF as one of the solutions. But predominantly we are SAF experts and we are working across the travel and transport system.
Has the mission changed?
It's not changed, it's just become wider. There's more work involved. Once you begin to work in one fuel, you realise there are other fuels. Displacement happens when you're trying to make one happen over another. Once you work in aviation, you're also thinking about other transport modes. It is part of the whole ecosystem. So we are certainly aviation experts, SAF experts, but it fits into a wider ecosystem.
SAF, some see as an interim measure. What's your view on SAF in the medium and long term of a sustainable aviation future?
It is a transition fuel, but for example, the order books for Ryanair went in last year, and that means that they will be using those planes up to 2065. Basically, it's planned in by governments and industry that SAF is going to be used. And also the alternative is that hydrogen planes come online. Now the prediction was 2035, but having been to Farnborough, now there's still just such a big question mark around hydrogen for planes.
It's huge. It's huge. Yeah. Hydrogen's a great example of something that looks like the magic bullet, and it is technically, but when you unpack it and the complexities of delivering everything from the infrastructure to the design of the planes and not being able to store fuel in the wings and needing to store it at near absolute zero, you know, there's so much to making that work. It's decades out, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of blockers, and then safety. So to pass safety tests and things like that. And I don't know if this is still the case, but a couple of years ago there were no submitted designs for the standard commercial aviation size plane, like an EasyJet or for hydrogen planes. So that's already an indicator that it's not going to be happening soon.
So do you see the broad adoption being SAF, e-fuel, hydrogen?
People are investing in hydrogen for aviation because, like all tech, you do need to keep certain funds going to new R&D. And that is what governments, the European Commission, is doing. The UK government does put climate in the same category as war and terrorism, so it is giving it that level of seriousness. So how do you make things happen with risks? And you kind of have to go to the lowest denominator. So the lowest denominators are making renewable hydrocarbons, making hydrogen, and then making clean electricity.
Setting up any organisation is tricky, and especially when it's an organisation that's pioneering in a sector that's in its infancy. What have been the tools you've used in order to succeed?
Yeah, I think it is keeping an open mind, meeting a lot of people. You come together in a group when you all want to make the same thing happen.
Do you see what you're doing at Fly Green Alliance as a calling?
In some ways it was. A couple of things came around at a very specific time. So in some ways it was quite a green beacon, and it kind of made me think in a different way.
In the 5 years that you've been working with Fly Green Alliance, what are you most proud of? Keeping
it together for a start, getting through the pandemic. It's an incredibly difficult topic. It's political, it's evocative, it's all of these things. In my previous roles, I was certainly a facilitator and a coordinator. I was a producer in advertising. I wasn't an account manager, I wasn't a business developer, so I had to learn all of this to sustain my own living. and to propel Fly Green Alliance forward.
What one piece of advice would you give to somebody who's looking to set up an organisation as you have done with Fly Green Alliance? Is there any business advice that you can give?
I would join as many groups as you can, because I've done a lot of my work solo. It's quite hard to do it on your own because you're also bouncing around ideas in your own head. Make sure you've got a plan, you know how to get there, you know what you're doing, you know what your targets are, but also know that you can evolve. What you are in year 1 isn't what you're going to be in year 5.
Especially in this sector, right, which is changing so rapidly. Is there one piece of advice that you'd give to the general public and what they can do to promote a sustainable future?
We created a concept called carbon fasting. So if you think about how people have done the 5 and 2 diet,
Right.
where you reduce your calorie intake on 2 days a week.
Yeah.
So when you can, reduce carbon at any point. Mix up your carbon reduction in food, in recycling, in your methods of transport, everything that is advised. Do as many of these as you can while you can, when it's available, when it's a possibility, when it's affordable. It's kind of carbon budgeting. If sustainability isn't happening at your work, bring it to your work. If it is, bring it to your family. There's all different ways.
So it's about communication, it's about spreading the message.
And community, actually. We're going for a grant and the subject area is governance and policy, and it's around community engagement. So it's which initiatives are happening in the community that is going to help that work to happen and accelerate further.
Sarah, if we don't get these important processes in place, what's at stake with regard to the future?
It's the 14 million people that are predicted to be wiped out. It's the buildings and the infrastructure and land scorched and things like that. So there's the very physical parts. But then, of course, that has a knock-on effect. It's about towns and cities and rebuilding and insurance. So then that's when it becomes a business. There's obviously different levels of effect. Then has a business effect of climate refugees and moving people around and rebuilding roads and buildings. And so it's all of these things. And then there's just, different layers, of course, in this topic from definitely a business and consumer point of view, but then from a very realistic physical point of view as well. So I think we need to, a lot is at stake, essentially, and that's why we feel it's really important to do this work and to accelerate it and make sure we are trying to get to the targets.
Sarah, it's been fantastic talking to you today. Thanks so much for giving me your time and unpacking what Fly Green Alliance does and what your motivations are behind it. And I wish you all the success with the continued development of the initiatives you're working on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been nice to walk around Stratford today.